Every life has a story behind it. But are you writing the story you actually want to? We're here to explore what it means to live an intentional life that echoes for generations by leaving a better legacy. You can find out more at davidcreyes.com. But now, let's dive in. Hey everyone, I'm super excited for this episode of the Legacy Owners Podcast. We've got Eric Skeldon on here, and I just want to say a couple things about him before we dive into the interview here. First, there are some powerful moments in this interview, and if you've ever felt like I'm not qualified, I don't know if I'm the person that can actually create a business, make an impact on the world, whatever it is it might be, listen to Eric's story. Listen to some of the things that he walked through. And I would just encourage you to listen to the choices that he made. He walked through these moments and made incredibly vital decisions that I think if he hadn't made, he would not have been able to move forward the way he has. Eric he's taken the real estate market by storm. He's done incredible stuff with NFTs, and now they're storming the entertainment and business brokering world. So this guy is doing massive work. He's had interviews with Sean Boltz, with Brian Head Welch, previously of Korn, who's a really strong believer. And so I'm just excited for you to catch some of his story. Now, the last thing before we dive in, I want to remind you we have the Thriving Christian Entrepreneur workshop that's coming up, and I'd love to invite you to join me. You can go to davidcreyes.com and register for that. Get more information. It's totally free. It's a 2-day training, a couple hours each day, and we're going to be diving into some powerful tools that will equip you to grow your business, grow in your faith, and have a foundationally strong marriage. And now join me for this incredible interview with Eric. All right. Well, we are here on the Legacy Owners Podcast, and I have with me a really good man that I'm super excited to connect with today. I'm super excited for you to hear his story. This is Eric Solutions Skeldon. He is the CEO of Kingdom Warrior Studios, kingdombroker.com, and number one best-selling author of the books The Kingdom Mind, Wealth with a Purpose, and Kingdom Real Estate Secrets, which I got the honor of being a part of that and writing a chapter with you guys. So really excited to have you on today, Eric. Thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Hey, thanks, David. And that book is awesome. I was just one of our co-authors is, I guess, taking like 25 copies into the prisons and getting
Oh,
some of
wow.
that knowledge in there. So it's just cool to see even those books, that everyone contributed some of their, what God's taught them in that industry on how to serve more people. And it's cool to see the knowledge getting out there. So appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things that I love about you, and since I first met you, I had this sense that you just are highly intelligent, highly ambitious, but you dream big and you have all of these incredible ideas. And so I've seen you successfully grow all of these different types of businesses. I wondered if you could I want to take just a couple minutes and hear about what you're doing right now. And then I'd love to expand on that more in the end and kind of let you share a little bit more detail. But what are you doing right now? What's the big focus that you have?
Yeah, so one of the highest level focus right now, we're really looking at almost like what we've seen BlackRock and some of these, I mean, just everything from the big banks to just the wealthiest people of the world putting together funds, whether it's a hedge fund or private equity fund. And we've really been gathering with some high finance, wealthy investors, people who are wanting to bring kingdom impact and even, own small businesses, own, big single family portfolios and think, what would it be like if the kingdom had a fund? So we've recently been working on, building a multi-million dollar fund to start doing more deals for, to bring ROI and to bring having culture to own to managing and buying and owning some of these businesses, but then also from the overall profits and stuff, have a lot of kingdom impact. But also, we believe if good stewards are managing some of these businesses, and we're even looking at a region. So we're having a whole prayer team have us focus on picking a region, and we're going to really look at
Mm,
transforming almost the city through buying up the businesses in that city and bringing kingdom culture to those businesses and
wow.
prayer. So we're kind of building this fund for a city and a region to almost do a case study on transforming a city,
Oh,
modern
that's
day
cool.
case study. So that's kind of the biggest thing we're working on. And then we're working on also in the film and media Christian space. We're also working on bringing some of the top producers, filmmakers, animators together for kind of building even a Christian our own Hollywood, or what we sometimes we call Holywood. We're building our own Christian
Nice.
ecosystem for film and animation, and everything from scripts to story development to storyboarding to how to get funding for development. So we're really building the ecosystem to help creatives. There's some of the most amazing creatives in the world, but they don't have financing. They don't have a whole system to even be themselves in that
Hmm.
industry. So
Right.
we feel like there's a lot of need for reform for people to be able to be Christian, or even if they're conservative, that they're allowed to be themselves and not be canceled in that industry.
No, that's good. Yeah, because there's a lot of dependency on other studios and who's doing distribution and what are they going to allow, and I would imagine that's really tough in the market.
Yeah, it is, and they like working on excellent projects and these cool films, but the worse it's getting, the more like woke it's getting, and the more demonic some of these films are getting. They're like, I don't like, even though we're getting paid good, I don't even like being putting my name on that film
Yeah,
because it has
yeah,
maybe a lot of perversion.
right. No, that makes sense. Wow. So, I mean, all of those things, that's really like high level stuff. I think I would love to hear how did you get there? Because, when you look at most people's journey, like, have you always been an entrepreneur? Have you always been building businesses? Or what's kind of the progression that took you from like, average Joe to working on these really high level businesses?
Yeah, it's interesting. For me, it was really just, I mean, my dad's from South Africa. My mom, is
Mm,
Mexican, and I'm a few generations up, came from Mexico, and so just my mom was the youngest of 12. My dad had like five siblings. He came out here in the '80s on a tennis scholarship, so they met during college, and yeah, I think Alabama at Auburn University, and that was where I was born in
no.
Montgomery, Alabama, and growing up, I don't know, for whatever reason, was just, very, like, I don't know, just I would say my brain thought different, and, like, I was just I was definitely, I mean, and they basically labeled it ADHD, ADD, like, dyslexic, different things, and then I was just, I mean, I definitely was just super hyper. I was always jumping around. My mom used to call me like a rabbit because I was just, like, jumping up and down all the time, playing with balloons, and, like, I was just kinda like a very just, I don't know, rambunctious kid or whatever. But and then in school, like, I got went to summer school in elementary for math, and really saw that I struggled in math. I think it was some of the dyslexia. I would like put like a plus and minus, or like once you start doing those long equations, if you do a plus and minus, the minus makes it go the total
Yep.
opposite if you
Yep.
do the equation wrong. So, or like 23, I'll put 32, 82, 28. Like I'll like mix up numbers sometimes, or and just weird things like that. And then so it messed up with a lot of my math equations. So, and I just like, also I just couldn't really focus on it. Like I couldn't, when they were trying to teach these math concepts and stuff, like after, like, I think multiplication, addition, subtraction, multiplication, I was good at. But once they started going, letters, y equals mx plus b, and trying to bring all these other things in, I really got where I just didn't even understand what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And then as I did try to really, like, really have to focus hard or try hard, sometimes I'll just mess it up, just because if you had to do a whole page of notes, I'll do one thing wrong, and then the equation's wrong. And so anyways, was kinda like a C student and a lot of
Mm,
things. I mean, English and history I enjoyed, and I noticed that the things I was passionate about, I was, like, really passionate about it. And so for me, it was basketball growing up. Just played basketball pretty much after school, would run 2 miles to the rec is what they called it, recreational center in Lewisville, Texas. Grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and just basically was drugged to church, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or yeah, the weekends. And my mom, ended up working up at a church. And but I think my mom kind of brought a lot of the entrepreneurial um, stuff, because she did photography and videography for the high school, and it really gave me a grid to like pick up her DSLR camera and started using. She only did photography, but on those DSLR cameras,
mm,
they had a video feature, and I was like, "Mom, there's this video feature, and it like
mhm.
shoots 1080p, and it shoots this really good video." So I started doing just shooting little, like, corny videos and editing them, and
Oh,
I
that's
got kind of
cool.
excited about that back when I was in high school.
Wow.
And, also, she was also a painter, so I saw her, like, work in these wealthy homes, painting. So I always kind of had an idea because she would be around some of these wealthy people, and at the church we worked at, or she worked at a couple of these big churches. And so and then my junior and senior year, I worked at a mega church where Tony Romo and people from the Dallas Cowboys, I worked at in the preschool department. And so was always really good with kids too. And so, it's funny that we have like 6 kids now and like
Oh,
you
that's
just get all the
amazing.
pretty much have my own preschool and like a daycare. But anyways, but yeah, I worked over there and saw like it was during the time period where Tony Romo was dating Jessica Simpson. Everyone's angry at
Oh,
Jessica for
yeah, I remember that.
the Cowboys not playing well
Yeah.
or something. But yeah, just kind of saw big churches, inspirational and like good pastors, but didn't see a lot of transformation and a lot of just the impact that I was, end up seeking later in my life. And so anyways, yeah, there was this but as far as the entrepreneurial question, I saw my mom do all those entrepreneurial things. She had a daycare at one time. She had where she had like 20 kids after school in middle school, high school, or whatever. I don't know what time period. One of them when I was growing up, like a few years, she had a pretty thriving daycare where in the summertime it would be real busy. Everyone would just drop off like 20 kids at my mom's place, and or I don't even know and how we did it because somehow we got everyone over to Six Flags, which is like the big amusement park, and
Yeah.
also Hurricane Harbor in Arlington, where they used to have the old Cowboy Stadium, but which is the big water park, kind of like the SeaWorld. I'm here in Orlando now near SeaWorld, which everyone's like, oh, you need to go to SeaWorld, and I've never been. But and Hurricane Harbor was the big water park, and they had amazing these wave pools and all this cool stuff. But we used to
That's
always just
cool.
take all the kids over there and my mom. And so I just always just yeah, like just saw my mom just doing these entrepreneur things. And my dad was an accountant, so he was just, doing his 40, 50 hours a week working in Dallas, 20 miles away, as an accountant, and that he did that pretty much my whole childhood. So,
Mm.
and then he was just very frugal because just being from South Africa, I guess they didn't have that. They never either they didn't use AC or they didn't whatever because he would never like us using too much AC. He always wanted to like barely keep it on and just very frugal. Like always made us like just stay, and it was very OCD.
Mhm.
Like our shoes had to be perfectly like put together if they're sitting on the floor. Like everything had to be like just he wanted it like real just neat and organized and that's where I think I get that side of my brain that's kind of intelligent but like very just like I don't know. I call it he's South African, so I always relate to Elon Musk and I'm like I got, Elon Musk in my
Sure.
blood, like that type
Nice.
of brain where it's just thinking about things in different ways because my dad was very logical and like he was very smart like with concepts and stuff, but I think the mix of my mom and dad really helped me to have that like very intelligent like
Mm.
thinking that my dad had, but even with some of the weird ADHD and like dyslexic, some of the things where my
Yeah.
brain probably didn't work like normal people, but in a way it just the way my mom was very much about people and faith and like entrepreneurship and like photography, and so I think I got more of a good mix of entrepreneurial and people and faith, and then bringing in some of the intelligence of like, how to actually do this. Like, what are the concept? Like, how to take a concept and how to figure out how to reverse engineer to make
Mm.
that concept come into reality.
Right.
So I really just I always thought about psychology, human behavior, how people think, how people are wired, why people do what we do, why the culture, and so I was questioning that stuff as a kid. Like, why do we all just do what everyone tells us to do, whether it's the street signs to the billboards to so I just started seeing like from a young age that like maybe everyone's just like cattle and they're just like doing what the signs say to do and like
Right.
everyone's just following a system. So I knew like from a very young age that we were in a system and like this whole system was built to tell us what to do. Everything from, green, the green lights to the billboards, eat this, do
Yeah.
this, drink milk, do that, this isn't season, so you need to do this. Like and I was very much like, dude, there's some brainwashing that has to be going on. So I started really researching like who's doing the brainwashing, who knows what, and like, and so it's funny. Like from a young age, I was really, especially at 18, I really just like 18 and 19, really just questioned everything. When I
I'm
first got in
I'm just
college,
I'm picturing 14-year-old Eric like, "You know who George Soros is?" Going around to his friends like,
exactly. No, I think I was more in that and like at 18 is when
okay.
I think in high school I was still kind of a little bit oblivious, but no, I definitely was kind of just like always asking questions. So I was very inquisitive, even in
Yeah.
high school. I was always asking why or and I would get in trouble because I would, just some people don't want you to ask them questions,
Sure.
uh, and I think even in the church, that was my hard thing at first of the church because I felt like there were so many gatekeepers, and so I'd want to talk to pastors or the preacher, and then at big churches, they don't even let you talk to the pastors, and I was like, they always want you to go to a deacon or go to some other person. Like, why can you not ask them questions about what they're preaching and what they're telling
Yeah.
us?
Yeah.
And so there was just a lot of things. Um, yeah. So I mean, but entrepreneurially, yeah, my first business was like a Sam's Club wholesale, candy business, and then I
Mm.
got, like, called in the principal's office and, basically my mom came and had to, tell me I can't be selling and the school's like, "You can't be selling and making money," but basically I just was seeing a problem back then because they would, all my, my parents would we I think we even had, like, reduced lunches or something where we'll just have we could only get whatever was the lunch, and then we
Yeah.
couldn't get all they had these little, like, extra candy or snack bar areas where, some of my richer friends would, like, go buy all this fun stuff, and sometimes they'll get me stuff, but I was like, "Man, like, if they're all buying that stuff, that's only during that period that they can do that during lunch. During the rest of the time, I was like, I could have a backpack full of all the similar stuff that I know they'll pay for, and I know the prices of it, and then, so I just kinda was like, "Oh, I'm gonna meet a need," and then my dad would have a membership of Sam's Club, so when he would get groceries, I was like, "Hey, dad, I'll let me whatever, like, get this for me," and I think even that was one cool thing. I think, yeah, he even would pay for 'em sometimes if he knew I was gonna, like, do something good with it or not just eat it all, the candy or whatever.
Wow.
'Cause
So what can I want to just pause you for a second because it's an incredible story. You're talking about going from like people are telling you you have ADHD, you've got dyslexia, you've got these learning things that are making it hard for you in school, and your family's like they're not super well off, but your mom clearly could had an eye for opportunity. She could see where there was a need and figure out a way to turn it into something that could bless your family. And then you've got your dad very detail oriented. How did you move from like I would imagine, like, if it was me, like, being hit with kind of these labels would be tough. Would feel like, "Man, I'm not able to get as far as everybody else." And yet it seems like you were able to keep this kind of sense of hope and optimism and questioning and pushing forward. How did that work for you? Because I know a lot of people who struggle with those things, and it seems as though they let it really put them under and kind of
Mhm.
diminish their belief in what they could accomplish.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I think that's kind of my inspiration now is to be a messenger for other people who were labeled C students or, "Oh, I'm not smart enough. I'm not the Harvard kid. I'm not the Princeton,"
Yeah,
because the world system tells us you need to be the smartest. You need to go to Stanford, and, oh, all the best Silicon Valley, the money goes to the Stanford kids with their ideas and their startups, and, like, I wanted to bend the roles to be like, "No, like, someone from Louisville that's a C student can come up with a startup that can get whatever, millions in funding and become some amazing company. And so that's kind of I'm still in the ideation or still building that out
I
to
love that.
prove it more, but that is possible. But I mean, at least yeah. So to your point, I think um yeah, like I really did struggle with identity for the longest time, and I think thinking I am stupid. Maybe I'm just dumb, or maybe I'm just over whatever. Like, so I struggled with that for a long time, just thinking I was stupid. And a lot of my friends that I would even become friends with and do like sports with, they would, because I would stutter sometimes or just
Mm.
whatever, like just mumble a lot because I wasn't really that confident in like my speech and stuff. And so they would like always just and then back in high school where I grew up, people were just made fun of each other. That's how I guess that's how they do friendship is they just like
Yeah,
constantly just like make fun of each other.
that's just
But yeah,
middle school, right? Yeah, the high
yeah,
school.
middle school and high school, they just all would just call each other stupid and stuff. But anyways, um, yeah, I actually did being labeled all that stuff. I knew school wasn't my thing, so I just resulted to being like a class clown and trying to be a funny person. So that did actually make me and then entrepreneurial too, because I started seeing that I liked entrepreneurship or I liked ways to make money, to think about like ideas or things that could make money.
Mm,
So I started thinking about that kind of stuff. And then I did still think basketball would be like I would do something in basketball. Like it was kind of like a dream. Oh, I would go to the NBA or, and then because that was a way, growing up, NBA players make millions of dollars. So it's like if I get good enough at basketball, maybe I can make millions of dollars, whatever.
Yeah.
But so I think it was just kind of a way to, um, and I just loved it. Like it was just the game of basketball is just really it was just always fun, and I was passionate about it. So I think yeah, just like basketball, being a class clown, trying to be funny,
Yeah.
and then like some ideas to make money, and then church once it started getting like more into like church and faith, and like I never really liked the religious side and the control side, but I
Hmm.
did like just people and like just thinking about God and loving people and serving people and like um, and then and then, to be honest, there was always, like, pretty girls that the church would go to, so it's like,
Right.
"Hey, if there's pretty girls there, then that's where you wanna hang out," but, yeah, so I think I did struggle with it for the longest time. Also just letting some of those words label me, and kind of part of the my first book, The Kingdom Mind, was kind of starting to get mentors and even believing what God was saying about
Mm,
my mindset and who I am and the ability to be a leader, the ability to be a speaker, even though I struggle with speaking, the
right.
ability to be a communicator or intelligent, like to have like divine intelligence and to have intelligence from heaven or
Mm,
being empowered
yeah,
by the Holy Spirit to where the Holy Spirit can activate things in you that maybe
absolutely.
your brain or your neural pathways don't think well, but through God's Spirit, he can start like helping you reshift your brain or start speaking new thoughts, speaking new things over like here's my old story, an old narrative, here's a new story, a new narrative, and start really speaking it and then having your mind believe it, have your body believe it, your whole biosphere believe it to where
Mm,
you actually become what you're saying and what you're doing and you're starting to live like that. So I started putting a lot of that into practice, and that's what kind of really Romans 12 too, like the transformation of your like renewal of your mind each day and the transformation of your mind. Like that was something I was really into. Um, and then at 18, I wrote a manuscript called The Power of the Mind, which
mm,
was more like philosophy because I was in philosophy. So it's more like Greek, which the Greeks actually created democracy and Demokratos, and like they actually
yeah,
were the founders of
right.
democracy that we now use as far as how we try to do power with voting and senators. They had that in the Greek, and then the Romans kind of took it over and kept their libraries preserved. So I was always really fascinated with that. But I wrote the book called The Power of the Mind at 18, and I gave it to some of my professors, and they were kind of like pretty actually astounded that like I like curated and wrote that because it was just like I was so like I was just so I didn't like the whole system that was going on, but I was just like, and I feel like The Power of the Mind was really just this manuscript that was kind of like showing how one, there's some brainwashing going on and there's like mind control kind of going on, but two, it was like how the power of our thoughts and the power of what we think, which a lot of that's come, there's a lot of literature on it, like Think and Grow Rich.
Yep.
There's literature on your thoughts become your feelings become your words become like just different things like that, like believe it, achieve it, or what is
Yep.
it? If you can believe it, you can
So
achieve it.
so if I was to sum up kind of some of this journey, it seems like you kind of saw the system. You saw that I don't really fit so well in this thing. So I'm going to move out over here and begin building my own thing. And I think you found what you started to do to that.
Mhm.
It sounds like that you weren't alone. There were other people, there were mentors, there were people that had more of that entrepreneurial mindset that said, we don't have to do it all the way that it's always been done, but we can invent and
Mhm.
build and create something new. And so
Yeah.
you start selling things in your backpack, and then you begin kind of getting people pouring into how you think about yourself and what you believe you're capable of. And then even to the point of writing, did you ever turn that into a book? Did that ever come out?
No, I think ultimately when I bought the kingdommind.com and
Yeah,
kind of God started giving me inspiration for the Kingdom Mind and the Lion of Judah, and during that time I kind of was like the power of the mind was kind of more like not even just new age, but it was just like it was without God. It was without I admit that maybe there was a couple because I had a lot of quotes in there from all these people. Maybe there was a couple scriptures, but it was very much like more just psychology, the best of
sure.
philosophy, psychology, and maybe science, And
Yeah,
so I was very much at 18, 19, I was questioning everything and just about religion because I was in big religion churches and I was like, and I saw the issues with that system and the flaws with it. So I was like, I- and so I thought that may have been attributed to God and Jesus, which really was more attributed to man and what man did with. religion,
Gotcha.
versus like, and then so I ended up at 21 really just I really started seeking God out for myself. Like, I want to actually hear God. I want to actually hear the voice of God. I want to
Mm,
hear Holy Spirit. And because not just all the system and the programming I had growing up about faith and read your Bible and do good. I was like, no, I don't. I like that, but it's like,
yeah.
no, I want like something real. Like
Right.
I need to know that God is real. And so, so and I went through this whole season while I wrote that manuscript. But yeah, the Kingdom Mind, the book was kind of the manifestation of that, with giving God credit and with more kingdom thinking to the idea of the transformation, what you can do with speaking and believing in God and believing in
Sure.
yourself, mentorship, and just the power of your thoughts. So I think 18, 19, I actually my next entrepreneurship thing was building solving the problem for bringing marijuana from Dallas to, this small country town that didn't have good marijuana for our teammates. So I started bringing it for our teammates. Next thing I know, this thing scaled up to where I'm like the plug for this whole community college and even this whole city. And so like, and I was like making a ton of money just as a college kid trying to still do my sports and try to still do school, which I ended up flunking out of school,
Mm,
and then ended up kind of really just like a lot of just crazy stuff. I mean, I would get so many people would just try to steal from me just because I started making all this money as a 18, 19-year-old. And so a ton of people were trying to jack me and all this stuff. And I was just getting caught up in all like basically being in that industry, the underground industry of that. And so God ended up like radically getting me out of it and just um almost like an angelic an encounter, getting me out of, almost getting busted actually.
mm,
And, totally just getting scotch free and me being like, God, I'm gonna serve you the rest of my days, like, if you can help me get out of this. And he got me out of a crazy situation, which I
wow.
write more of it in my book. But
Yeah.
when he got me out of that, I started just being like, okay, maybe that was him hearing me. And then I started, trying to get more clarity. And he kept, I feel like, hinting me and tapping on my shoulder, hey, you said you're going to live your life for me. And then he showed me this film, super like serendipitous. This film that I found in my when I went back from college to my house in Louisville, my parents' house. In my room, they turned it into a music room, but there was this movie, Father of Lights and Cellophane, and I
Yes.
brought it
Darren
back.
Wilson.
And
So
Darren
good.
Wilson. And when I watched that film, that was what really wrecked me. It was like, that's it. I'm all in on that. Like, whatever
Yeah.
the people are doing in there, that's what I want to live. And then my wife and I, like, less than 6 months later after watching that film, me being like, "I'm all in, God, let's go do that." I was already enlisted in the Texas Army National Guard, and I wanted to get my life together, learn more about authority, because I had all these issues with government and all the crazy systems in the US. And so I was kinda like, almost like, "Okay, I'm willing to go into the system and be an airborne infantryman, learn about the military, learn about, how our government works, why the reason for military and whatever, and, like, government and, being swearing, taking an oath to protect the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic, like having to go through all that and see like, okay, what is because in the Bible it does talks about like how he puts the kings in order. He puts,
Yep.
the systems or so I was kind of studying the things I didn't like about the system, and then okay, like what is God's design for order and authority? And otherwise we just if we were all just questioning everything and didn't want to listen to anything, like we'd all just be chaos.
Yep.
So I was starting to realize there is some reason for order. I need to figure out authority and the reason for order, even if there's bad leaders, um, and bad systems that are in place or whatever. I need to figure out the more to it. And so got in the military and then left that whole, life, did flunk out of school. So I was kind of like not happy about that because I didn't leave school and my team, like kind of feel like I let my team down. But then actually, um, there was actually a little part between that. I ended up working at Olive Garden for a year, came back, and actually went back to my, college team and spent a year after I first, like, was doing the selling drugs and flunking out, and I went and did it right without selling drugs and just focused on academics, faith,
Mhm.
and, like, the school. I spent a whole year doing that, then left for that summer I was leaving, and my wife came, and we watched that on our first date night, and
Wow.
we
Your
ended up
first date
getting
night, you watched Father of
was
Lights?
Father of Lights, yeah, with my
Wow.
mom. And so my mom too she was, in her youth group. My wife was in her youth group and, like, came out also from a crazy testimony, um, which she writes in the Kingdom Mind book. But it was just a lot of cool God things that only God could have
Mm.
done to bring everything together after I was, like, all in on God and, like, I wanna hear your voice, I wanna live a supernatural life. And he just started doing all these things that were someone could say prophetic or just divine moments that
Absolutely.
it almost speaks to someone like me where I almost have to see things through patterns or through almost like either numbers, patterns, or some sort of system where it's like it's only God speaking because it's like I can't like you can't deny it.
You have
Um
some sort of confirmation that's more than it just can't be coincidence. It's God speaking to you.
Exactly, and that's how he speaks to me through numbers, through coincidences, through patterns, through, um, timings, through just I mean, even intuition, like, it's not always and so for people that are introverted or their brains work different, like, ask God to speak to you in unique ways and, like,
Hmm.
speak to me how I would know that it's you, and he will speak to you in unique ways,
I think
and
that's so
that's the
good
really cool
because
thing.
I think a lot of people uh, don't believe God speaks to them because they have in their mind this one particular way that it should
Mhm,
be like, and they don't experience it that way. And so I love that you identified how you hear him and you've really lucked into that. And it doesn't have to look the same as everybody else. I think he
mhm.
does speak to us in our own unique language almost, the way that he's designed us to hear him. So that's really cool.
Yeah, if you watch the movie The Matrix is one of my favorite movies, and, they said, like, follow one of the, like, messages from I think it was that to find Trinity, which was kinda like one of his guides to Morpheus, who was, like, the guide to really set him free, but, and train him up was, they said, like, follow the rabbit.
Hmm.
There was something in a dream or
Yeah.
something, it was like, follow the
Follow the white
rabbit,
rabbit on the
white
computer
rabbit.
screen, I think it said, yeah.
Yeah, it said, "Follow the white rabbit," and then he sees the girl with the tattoo of the white rabbit. So it's like, most people, if they saw that tattoo, they wouldn't just think, "Oh, that's
Yeah,
Holy Spirit speaking,"
right.
you know? But and for Neo, that was, who was, like, one of the coolest characters in the world, and, like, that was how he heard through patterns and got set free, so it's like,
That's
you
cool.
know, you have to be open to just unique ways that God speaks to you. Um,
That's so
yeah,
good.
more open-minded.
So I wanna ask you this because I know there's so much more to your story, but I'm curious to know, like, you've gone on this incredible journey, like, you it sounds like your first, like, real big business was hauling marijuana to this place that didn't have access to it, and you're making good money there, and then
Yeah.
God starts getting a hold of you, you start getting just big mind set shifts, and I've watched you do some amazing things, like building with real estate and with NFTs and now with business and film, like, for somebody, because I'm similar to you in that I get a lot of ideas and pictures, and it's like, "Oh, what if?" Like, we're really good as entrepreneurs about asking, "What if? What if this
Mhm.
could happen? What would that look like?" So, I think my question to you is, how do you discern which ideas you're supposed to go after? Now, I know you were talking about kinda hearing God's voice and patterns and things, but, like, on a practical level, let's say you're sitting on, like, 3 amazing business ideas, or even one idea that could go different directions.
Mhm.
How do you develop that with God? How do you actually decide, like, this is what I'm supposed to be working on and how it's supposed to look?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and that's I would say the biggest struggle I would say I had in my 20s was I had all these ideas, but I would try so many different things and I would just not do them well and I'll lose passion over them because they wouldn't be working.
Mm.
They wouldn't be working like how I'd want them to work, like where you think you're just gonna start them and they're just taking off, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So they wouldn't work that well, and so they're not providing sustainability, they're not providing, so I would just kinda give up on them. So, I mean, I've tried so many different things, and so that's another thing to people out there is, like, you're gonna a lot of times you are gonna try a lot of different things and fail, you know? I think
Mhm.
the light bulb was, like, I don't know, like, you have to look up how many times, but hundreds and hundreds of times it failed before the light bulb was the one that was successful. Now, we have light, but it's like I think it's, that was I would say the hardest thing for people with ADHD, for people to, like, to use their ADHD as their superpower of, like, focus, like, where they're passionate about random things, whether it's YouTube videos or it's cooking or it's turning peanut oil into some amazing cooking thing, like, whatever it is that you like, get some excitement about or you find some new you look in the industry of, like, let's say TikTok, you're like, "Oh, man, TikTok is so much untapped potential. Maybe we need to do this or that," or, like, so I get all these ideas all the time, and I think that's part of the visionary. If you read, a good book is to read for visionaries to focus on this is, the book about visionary and integrator, Rocket Fuel.
Mm.
So, Gino Wickham, it's called Rocket Fuel, but it talks about the visionary and how, one, eventually you need to get a good integrator to basically they say visionaries will get 10 new good ideas for the business each week. So like we have a media company, so I could come up with so many different ideas for media, music, film, animation, gaming, but if we try to do all those things with, say we only had 10, let's say we only had 10,000 a month in revenue and operating expenses. If I wanted to do music, gaming, all this stuff with 10,000 a month, we would just our whole and let's say we had 5 people working on it. The team would run dry trying to do music, gaming, film, animation. So we would just dissolve and everyone get burnt out and say, Eric, we can't do this
Mm,
anymore. And it would just, so finding a good, a person around in a company idea, if you get 10 new good ideas for the company, one or two of those ideas, and let's say you have the overhead, you have the team, you have the operating capital to actually do it,
mhm,
or you have the manpower. Let's say you have a team of 3 people that you guys are just like, you guys believe in this vision, you're going to do it. So if you have, hey, this is our one new idea of strategy, how we're going to launch this product, blah blah. So you need to really think about. I would say it goes to counting the costs. Like, okay, this
mm,
is
yeah,
and accounting the cost with people who really know. So it's like, for instance, if you were gonna build a house, like not just have me saying, "Oh, we can do this," and if I've never built houses, to say, "I'm gonna be able to spend $50,000, and then we're gonna be able to do this in 6 months, and we're gonna make $200,000." It's like, no, get an actual person who does the rehab, get 3 quotes on that rehab cost, and find out what it really costs, and then really how much time it takes, like a real range of how much time it takes. So, like, for instance, for me, let me give you a real example. So
yeah,
kingdombroker.com, I wanted to build that into a tech company. And so I feel like God said it was going to be like an Amazon for the kingdom,
mm,
and that it was going to be this thing that connected, like almost as connected the dots for something, a big problem, and was going to be like a $1 billion company. And that's what I felt like I was hearing from him when he gave me the vision, and he told me the domain to go buy it. And so when I knew that, I went and got practically I was like, "Okay, I need to learn about technology code." So I signed up for Bethel School of Technology that they brought their supernatural to Woz University with
yeah,
Steve Wozniak, the coder and inventor of co-founder of Apple with Steve Jobs. And so went to that coding school because I was like, I need to learn more about code and how to, know the stuff. And I found out I'm more definitely of a Steve Jobs where I need to work with coders, but at
yeah,
least I coded enough websites and things in CSS and JavaScript and Node and stuff to know like a grid for it and know that I don't need to be the guy who codes it, but at least I could vision what I want to build
yes,
and I
yeah,
could work with developers and speak their language a little bit. So anyways, so that was something I learned from that trial and error. But then also I went to 2 tech co-founders. So when I had a few different business ideas for kingdombroker.com. So like there you go. Like I have for one domain, one thing that I feel like God was very broad about,
you can go
is going to
multiple
be
directions.
I could have went multiple directions, a few
Yeah,
different business ideas, models for it, because there's always product market fit is the hardest thing because you don't know what the people want. What is the exact solution that people want, especially when you're doing technology or something that's going to serve potentially millions of people. Millions of people may just want, like listen to calm meditation, but before calm meditation, like whatever built this meditation, they had to probably figure out what do people like, what are the users wanting. They had to do a lot of research, so there's a lot that goes into it. So I went to the founder of Pray.com and then the founder of
mm,
Public Square, who both, Pray.com had 15 million users at the time. Now they have like 16 million and 2.5 million paying subscribers. Public Square had 1.6 million users and 70,000 businesses they were connecting. And so I became friends with both those founders and just through also divine asking for, godly friends like that and just being open to meeting, cool people and going to events and conferences, and we had a booth at NRB, and that's how I met the founder of Pray.com.
mm.
Anyways,
I was gonna ask how that happened because I think that's huge. When you have an idea and you wanna develop it, having a mentor, having somebody who's done something similar, and so, like, that you sought these guys out, like, did you
yeah.
just see him there and just go up and go, "Hey, I have this idea. Can I talk to you about it?" Or how did that work?
Yeah, so with Sebastian Sebastian already became on my board for Kingdom Warriors. So Kingdom Warriors, we
Mm,
interviewed him a lot, and then he kind of became friends through like just the Christian, entrepreneurial minded community that was kind of being built out. And there's a lot of just cool resources in the Christian entrepreneurship world that are growing. There's a lot of different networks and stuff.
mm,
But anyways, we just through divine connection we got close. But then we had a booth with it's funny because ORU, Sebastian came to ORU with me, and I introduced him to someone who he also did a business idea with that was an ORU grad. But yeah, Sebastian was with me out there, and he came to one of my Texas Kingdom Warriors events. So it's just cool. Like God just definitely set that one up. And
Mm.
then the one with Pray.com was yeah, we had a booth with ORU and 5 other businesses, and we shared a booth. We all put in, $1,000, $2,000 and shared like a $10,000 booth or whatever
Wow.
with 5 businesses. So we had our booth with all of our logos on there, ORU, Kingdom Warriors, and these others, just sharing our, like so people would come to us because there's just thousands of people that go to NRB. It's the National Religious Broadcasting. So it's all
Mm.
the communicators, even the prophetic, a lot of the prophetic voices, Lance
Wow.
Wallnau, Hank Kuhneman. So it's prophetic voices, the media voices, the Angel Studios is there, like they're launching
Mhm.
Sound of Freedom, all that stuff. And so um, we had a co-booth with all these people, and then so I think for Pray.com, they were the lead sponsor this year and that last year. And that was the year I interviewed Sean Bowles on my birthday, which was just a
Yeah.
cool it was a cool God divine moment for me because I was kind of like feeling in my feelings like, man, I feel like it's my birthday and I don't even know like I'm not doing a party, I'm not doing anything. And I think they ended some of my friends threw a party that night or whatever, but at the time I was just getting in my like emotions and I ended up running to Sean Bowles and getting to interview him and some others. So it was just really God was just speaking to that day. But I was asking for divine moments because I was there on my birthday at 30, my 32nd birthday. Like God, like you gave me this idea. I want to turn it into
Mm.
something. Like I need
Yeah.
to figure this out. And then I had the other idea, Kingdom Broker, which I was also trying to figure out. And I had a deck for it and a couple ideas for it. So I was like, I have these two big ideas. I know that you put some investment in. They've had some level of
Mm.
success. At the time, I think we had one like small investor in KingdomBroker.com. And it was the first idea. Before Kingdom Warriors ever became a 7-figure in revenue company in 2022. I got Kingdom Broker in 2020 like 2019, 2020,
Wow.
like Kingdom Broker, and I had it on a, just a notepad. And so I
Yeah.
waited. So this was already in 20 my birthday last year of May, so I guess May of 2023 was when I was getting some ideation. So it took from 2020 to 2023 to even get to where I had a deck and I kind of had a little bit of a team around an idea around Kingdom Broker, this
Mm.
technology idea. And so and I just felt like yeah, Kingdom Warriors just came first for whatever reason, because I knew it was gonna be big, and then I had to figure out a lot more stuff. Like, I needed to know more about how to get capital in companies, how to get a team. So
Mhm.
felt like I needed to go from 2018 when I did coding school, from 2018 when I knew I was gonna be a part of a tech company. It was 5 years later before I got to the founder of Pray.com to be like, "Hey, what do I do with this technology idea?" So it
Wow.
took since, I went to coding school, it took a long time. Um so when I met I actually the way I landed, um, the founder of Pray.com being on our on our team as strategic advisor and mentor was they were I had it like we had all the content with Kingdom Warriors and all the interviews. So they were like basically wanting me to become a client, right?
Hmm.
Because on to be a client to do a TV show and radio show of marketplace, like a
Right.
marketplace
Right.
ministry, which is my heart, which is talking to people about the marketplace and how to win souls and prayer and evangelism through the marketplace. Anyway, so they were trying to get me on that, and I was like, "Hey, I'm open to it," but I was like, I wanted to meet with the. For some reason, God just kept highlighting that Matthew Potter, the technology co-founder, and so
Mm.
ended up, they made a really good deal with me to get on their platform, and I was like, "Hey, like I wanted to talk to Matthew Potter about this idea and get some feedback." So he gave me feedback, and then he started even mentoring me on Saturdays. He's
Wow.
like, "Hey, I got to build Pray.com Monday through Friday, but Saturday I can mentor you."
Wow.
And so I became a client and signed a deal with them for Pray.com to do a TV show. And if you go to Pray.com, we have you can go check out our Divine Advantage. We have over 40,000 followers on there now,
That's
um,
fantastic.
and reaching people with a podcast. But, anyways, he's just started mentoring me and kind of just taking me through those ideas. So I would say it's not easy. Like it's like the journey for me to, and still right now with solving for Kingdom Broker and like what exactly we're doing, we've still had to pivot. We've pitched to we raised 350,000
Wow.
and like angel capital, but
Yeah.
we've now our people are like, "Hey, we need to do a fund and buy these small businesses," which was kind of the thesis of what we were trying to connect people with,
Yep.
connect investors with these good deals. And they're like, "Hey, your investment thesis is really good. These good deals, these baby boomers that are retiring the next 10 years, we need to capture this." But they're like, building the app and the network right now isn't the first thing. We actually need to just go and do these deals,
And yeah.
have the cash flow, and then we could fund our own technology
Yes.
through the cash flow instead of just so anyways, that's been the journey we've been on based on what our investors are telling us
Oh, that's so
on our
cool.
thesis. So
Can I just
it's
say
a
one of the things I love about that is you are, I mean, I talk a lot about legacy and the idea of what has been built being passed on to future generations. And so I love that that plays into what you guys are doing. Like you're saying, these boomers have built these businesses and these things that have potential to continue. And so you buy them up and you kind of, tweak them for newer needs in the modern
Mhm.
market. But such a cool idea to take something that's already the blood, sweat, and tears have been poured into it, and now you get to kind of take it and move it forward from there.
Yeah, it's legacy. One of our missions is legacy for a larger purpose. So,
Yeah,
someone's legacy they built, one, they can, have a legacy that they that the legacy keeps going and keeps thinking about new ways to innovate on almost like standing on the shoulders of giants of what they built and stewarding it for the kingdom. But also the wealth they get from exiting, they also now they can have a legacy in Christian causes and support their
absolutely.
family and
Yes.
have their next generation maybe pour into their ideas or training, or if they wanted to go, get mentorship and training, now they can pay for them to get, because I think the future like that is an important thing. Like if I had if I had, just someone, even like whether my parents or whatever, were able to say, Eric, this is what you want to focus on. Okay, we're going to pay for all your training and the best of trainers to teach you this
Hmm.
thing. Like that's what I want to be able to provide for my kids. Like
Yeah.
right now, we're trying to do that. If they want to do singing, we're getting them the best singing people to at least look and say, hey, like are do they really have talent? Do they really have a future in singing or not?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and so but my parents would have never have done that,
Wow.
and my mom probably would have, but she just didn't, they didn't have the money, and then my dad just yeah, was just being too frugal. I was like, "No, we don't spend any extra money on stuff."
Well, and I love how that just makes the vision of what you're trying to build so incredible because it's not just about, hey, I want to be rich. It's actually, outward focused on how do we bless the kingdom of God? How do we grow what he's doing in the world? But also with your own kids, like how do I equip my kids to be the next generation? And that brings up kind of another big question for me is how do you do all that you do and keep a healthy family, keep a good connection with your wife and your kids? Like how do you kind of be the busy entrepreneur who's building and growing and in growth mode and still stay engaged and connected with their hearts? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, right now it's funny because one of our partners that's now our COO that exited a technology company. One of them mentioned earlier. He was talking about how they're working 60, 80-hour weeks and going crazy for 3 years working, and they didn't have any kids. So it was a different story. It was just, but they're still married, so they had to, whatever. It still probably takes a toll on any relationship, but I think, yeah, it's talking about how, like, the things we're building now, we don't need to try to build it so fast and so, like, so much fuel that you get burnt out in 3 to 5 years,
Yeah.
or that you spend those 3 to 5 years where all your energy and all your time is just focused on building, say, a company, and so really looking at the long game. So looking at the long game instead of the short term. Like we don't need to build a billion-dollar company in 3 years or 5 years, Like we can and then that's one. So think about the long game. 2 is having a really excellent team and
Mm,
everyone doing what they're really good at. So like if you say we're bringing in 100,000 a month, making sure that 100,000 a month, you're paying staff to help you, everything from, executive assistants to a nanny. Like we have a nanny that helps us. We're thinking about different things to save our time back, get our time back so we can spend with our like we're at now we've been in homeschooling the past
hmm.
year. So just really being able to spend more time with our kids and like teach them entrepreneurship, teach them about, singing, acting, about film, about, even YouTube, like, what would it be like to make YouTube videos? And
Yeah.
so, like, thinking about things that will be the future of work and the future of, even like I've been having my daughter training some of my daughters at like creating AI art, with their
Mm,
prompts. Like, hey, here's how you can create AI art and stuff, and like teach them how to be like use their genius. Because a lot of my kids, I feel
mm,
like are geniuses too, and I'm like I want you to not. I don't want anyone like you know, even though they're genius, but maybe, they're actually really good at school too, unlike me. But I feel like, um, yeah, I want to be able to speak into that. So I think there's no such thing really as like, I don't know, like work life balance where, cause like if you're really passionate about the problems you're solving, like your passion is going to go towards that naturally. So mine does. So
Mhm.
my passion goes towards the problems I'm solving. So I do it with no, I work on the problems I'm solving with no like, not as much stress because I'm just so, like, passionate and
Mhm.
obsessed with wanting to solve these problems, and so that makes it fun because you're so passionate about it that it doesn't feel like work, like, if I'm working on, like I try to do right now, Saturday, for instance, like not on Saturday, I try to just put my phone away and just spend time with my family and not look at my phone, not check emails, not try to do tasks or manage people and say, hey, can you get this done? So it's been, that's been something, having
That's
a whole
good.
day of just rest and family
Yeah.
time. And then the other piece has been like, yeah, like if you love someone, you're just gonna do it, work on naturally. So that's what's fun about working on things you love to do and that you're passionate about. And I think but I think it's not, yeah, it's not easy. So I think the biggest thing for me I'm learning right now is, with, people that we have mentoring us in marriage,
Mhm.
and actually getting, not being afraid to get advice in marriage or parenting. Because you think about that, you get business coaches and mentors for technology, for how to do this, how to do that, everything from Facebook ads to whatever. You have to learn and get people experts on that. So thinking about that with parenting and family has been important. Like, all right, if I'm not that good at this, like then maybe we need to learn, because our parents didn't model perfect.
Yeah.
So getting, being just as intentional about that, I think is important to
Mhm.
actually to admit like, hey, like we actually need to learn and be intentional about planning for some of this stuff, like planning how are we going to do life, how are we going to do family, how are we going to do this stuff. And so I
Mhm.
think the more you can be intentional and plan, I think it helps. Because, yeah, it's like it's almost like if you don't think about your health, for instance, like health has been another thing I've been having to put more energy to health and a health coach and eating healthier and like being accountable to making healthier food decisions, being accountable to making more like exercise and stuff. So it's like the more intentional you are about each part of your life, because
Mhm.
we're a whole being. So it's like, the more you put towards looking at all of it, then um, anyways, yeah,
That's
it
so
takes
good.
focus. It takes like distributing some focus towards that
I
is what
love
I've
I
seen.
love that that one of your responses when you have something that you want to grow in is get a mentor. I love that you're talking about like people talking to you guys about your marriage or getting a health coach, like because I think so many people don't want to do that. They don't want to do the work that it takes to actually get someone to speak into their lives because it's scary. It's vulnerable to kind of say like, "Hey, I have uh, things I need to grow in, and I'm actually going to share my problems with someone else." So that's a big deal. I love that you guys do that.
Yeah, I think it's I think it is harder in marriage and like, I don't know, like some of those things that you kind of don't want people to judge you on and like
Sure.
whatever. It's harder sometimes, but and it's definitely just useful to just be like, hey, here's how I feel. Here's how your wife share how she feels, and then as you guys both share it, and then you find out actually we're both, like they say, what the husband wants respect, the wife wants to be loved,
Right.
like,
How
and you
much that
find out
grew
like,
to yeah.
wait, she's not actually trying to disrespect me, and then the husband's like, wait, he's not trying to just not be loving, he's really just trying to solve my problem or whatever, he's just trying
Yep.
to fix something and like and kind of blunt or something sometimes, and
Sometimes we need a
so
translator.
yeah, you need a translator. It just shows like, hey, you guys are actually both like, yeah, both are trying to do this. Maybe just try it this way, or try this method, or try this, try to communicate, or try to hear each other differently through different
Yeah.
lens, and so it's just really, I think all of life, like even with technology or startups, like or money, it's like you need a translator sometimes to take your old lens of what's possible with money. Like, oh, if you have $1 million idea and you need $1 million in capital, some people, like wealthy minded people, if they have a $1 million project, even a $10 million project, $50 million project, there's wealthy people right now that their mindset is call a few people and share something. I have this thing. Here's how much money it costs. Here's how much operations it needs. Here's how it's going to make money. Here's the model, and then here's my track record, and they make a couple calls, funded.
Yeah.
Their people are funding it, the project gets funded, the staff gets funded, the operation for 2 years gets funded, and it's just done. Like
And
that.
a lot of times that's even if they could do it on their own. Even if they had the money to do it themselves, they would still
Yeah.
call these other people and get other
Mhm.
people on board because it's so much better to work in that kind of
Yeah.
system where you have those other
'Cause you
voices and you
share
have a
the risk,
commitment.
but you also share the idea of, like, is this feasible? Like, do
Right,
4 high level people believe that that this is feasible and
right,
that they're willing to even put $1,000,000 in
right.
to build this and be a part of it? And so it's like you almost validate it if you have 4 super high level people to validate something, an idea and
That's
fund
so
it
good.
and have
That's
shared
so good.
risk in it, even though one person could just fund the whole thing and try to do it on their own. It's not worth it trying to do everything on your own.
Yeah. Good. Moment, man, I have one last question for you, just short question, then I'd love to hear how people could get in touch with you. But one of the things I like to ask is what is the last 10%? In other words, we hear a lot of coaches and teachers and people in this industry share like the 90%, and it's like the good stuff and here's how things are amazing and kind of the things you always hear. What's maybe the 10% that nobody's talking about in this
Mhm.
industry? And I'll give you an example. I do a lot of speaking and teaching in different places, and really, it's kind of common sense, but it wasn't until recently that I began to realize that some people who've been speaking 30, 40, 50 years that I highly respect shared that they still get stage fright, that they still go
Mhm.
up and they still have the jitters and the nervousness, and even some of that imposter syndrome can still pop up in people that have been wildly successful for such a long time. And hearing that last 10% is really encouraging because it means that struggling with that or having those feelings isn't something that should count you out from being able to be
Mhm.
successful. And so I was just curious to know for you, what would be the last 10% that you would share to people in this Christian entrepreneur industry?
Yeah, that's a good one, and I think to your point is, like, doing it scared. Like,
Doing
being
it
scared
scared.
of something and doing it scared is really important because you're gonna still be scared. Like, I'm, you know, had to overcome my biggest fear was public speaking or public
Mhm,
humiliation. People are gonna laugh at you. People are gonna be like, "Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about." He's, stutters and mumbles sometimes or messes up your words or whatever, and just doing it scared anyways, and then
mhm,
letting the Holy Spirit empower you to just be like, "Look, I'm gonna mess up. I'm not gonna be perfect. I'm not gonna do this 100% like where I'm the next whatever." And think of the biggest speaker, the best, speaker in your niche, and you're not gonna be like that overnight. And to know that you're gonna grow just by trying. You're gonna grow just by standing up on stage or going to karaoke. Like,
mhm.
for instance, I've been doing some karaoke every now and then just to be like,
Nice.
even though I don't feel like I have a that good of a singing voice, but at least it gets me where people, if they're laughing at me or they think whatever, I'm not afraid of it. It's like, who cares?
That's
Like,
so
I can
good.
conquer, and nobody cares. Like, I don't care if anyone, and the same thing as you grow, because if you really walk in the fullness of what God has for you, people are going to hate on you. People are going to say negative things about you, or, oh, look at that guy. Who does he think he is to rise to that level, to play at that level, or to play, especially like if you're a young person, like if you're a young person, you're trying to play a big game and be like, oh, who does he think he is? Like, he
Mhm,
hasn't earned the dues. He hasn't spent 30 years, being in W-2 job to get to that promotion. And it's like, but sometimes it's like God's like, you're not even trying to get promotion. You're just like, hey, why is nobody doing this? Like, I'm gonna do
right.
this and I'm gonna do it as good as I can. And I'm gonna learn as much as I can about this and just do it. And you're not thinking about, oh, I need to go work for 20 years to get approval to speak on stage or to preach the gospel
Mhm,
or to share testimonies of Jesus. Like,
mhm.
that was the hardest thing for me is thinking like, am I able to preach the gospel and like tell people like because I'm not a pastor, I didn't go to seminary. But it's like, no, it's like Jesus already approved you to go and
Yep.
tell testimonies, to go preach and go, and then people start following you, and it's like, wait, like they didn't even have to they people can start following you while you're preaching the gospel and doing big things, even though nobody approved you or like nobody gave you permission, or your pastor, like waiting for your pastor to give you permission to
Yeah.
go and do what Jesus already told you to do.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Man, I love that you do that, that you go do karaoke even though you don't necessarily feel super confident with it. That's how you rewrite neural pathways, right? That's how we take like going the easy route and what's comfortable, and then you put
Mhm.
yourself in the scenario that you know you want to overcome, like that feeling of concern of what anybody else says. That's so good.
Exactly. And before you just, "Oh, well, no, that's not me. I'm not a singer. I'm
Yeah,
not a speaker. I'm not a pastor, so I'm not gonna preach." Like, but that's just those are all limits telling you you can't do something.
yeah,
And you're never gonna preach to anyone. Now you're never gonna,
right.
talk to the person or ask for $1,000,000 for your idea from someone who maybe they would say yes if you talk to the right people. Like,
Oh, that's good. Man, I just appreciate you. I love what you're doing. I'm so excited to have had you today. Can you just share what is the big way that people can kind of connect with you? What's the website, the book? Like what is it you really want to draw people's attention to that you're working on right now?
yeah, so the book's on Amazon. Just type in Eric Skeldon, and you can see there's three of them I'm part of: Wealth with Purpose, The Kingdom Mind, Kingdom Real Estate Secrets, and we're working on another one more for business and economics and impact. And so I think and then Eric Skeldon on all socials. Just feel free to DM me or just say what's up. I try to just respond to people on social media, but yeah, mainly Facebook, Instagram, and then yeah, YouTube. I've been doing a lot more on YouTube. We just hit like 6,000 subscribers, which has been crazy on YouTube
That's
because
fantastic.
it's been like a 10-year journey on YouTube. Like
Yeah,
I keep a lot of I made I yeah, I deleted a lot of my like bad videos, but there's some of my videos where you'll see from 10 years ago when I told you like I picked up my mom's camera and then bought my own DSLR and just edited my first videos. But
that's cool.
yeah, like just yeah, it's a cool. But yeah, social media just I mean that's yeah, Eric Skeldon, and then yeah, Kingdom Broker. If you are looking to ever do something in business, buy a business, sell a business, kingdombroker.com.
Love it. Love it. All right, man. I appreciate you, like I said, and would love to have you on again. There's so many more stories you didn't get to tell, and there's so much more I'd love to dig into with
Yeah,
you.
let's do it.
You have a profound wisdom for people in this arena, and so I'm really glad to have gotten just some nuggets all throughout this that I think are going to really help people unlock what they're capable of.
Awesome, David. We appreciate it. And yeah, thanks to you guys. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your guys' testimonies and stories. And anything's possible with God. Just, have faith in God and start believing in himself, what he's given you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, man. We'll see you later.